everybody. Welcome to CANNAfact Friday. We survived another work week. Welcome to CANNAfact Friday. If you are just joining us for the first time, this is a show that we do every Friday on LinkedIn Live, and we share some stats and data and add context, and we play games, and we go berserk, and we listen to silly music, and we have a lot of fun. So thank you for joining us. My name is Adriana. I'm the VP of Strategy at ISA, which is an insights firm based in LA. And I'm also joined by my co-host, David Pawluschuk, the author of Branding Bud, a best-selling book about branding cannabis. How are you today, David?
I'm doing well. How are you today, Adriana?
I am super.
Right on. Apologies for to those that were waiting. We just started a couple of minutes late. We had some technical difficulties, but we're here. We pulled it through, and I knew we would. So I'm excited to be here with everybody. Like Adriana said, welcome. And this is episode number 10, which is pretty exciting. We've got a great guest today. But before we introduce our guest, what we do every week is we take data points and we talk to the industry's best influencers, best minds, and the folks that are in it every day. And we try to talk through them and contextualize those data points, which is really important. Because there's lots of data we get, lots of sound bites we get, and it's just all we get, but we don't sort of understand the bigger picture, and that's what we try to do here. So that said, and what's a big part of this is your participation. So we ask all the listeners to use the chat on the right side of their screen and join us and participate in the conversation. That's what it's all about. So that said, I would like to introduce our guest today. And our guest is Rick Gillis. Rick Gillis is the president of Tinley Beverage. They're based in Long Beach, California. And Rick is not only the president of the brand Tinley, so he developed the brand Tinley, but Tinley is also a co-packer. So they make many of the brands that you know and love, especially in California, or primarily in California. So with that, we'd like to introduce Rick. Rick is a senior executive, the president of Tinley. Rick has many years in the beverage industry, and Rick has spent many years at Coke as well. So he takes that knowledge of beverage development and distribution and brings it to the cannabis industry, and we're excited to chat with him today. Welcome, Rick.
Welcome.
Well, good morning, everyone, and it's a pleasure to be on the show. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're excited to talk to you today. So let's sort of kick it off with, I wanted to share that Rick was gracious enough to give us a tour last week of the Tinley location, and it was so interesting. I was able to see things I never thought I would see, the way it's bottled, the way it's produced, the way it's infused, and I learned so much. And thank you, Rick. That was amazing.
And I think just to add to that, the what goes into developing a beverage is just crazy over the top. Not only the development of the flavor profiles, but the shelf stability, the ability to can it, the ability to clean the cans before the liquid is put in. There were so many steps and processes that Rick, you took us through that were just really amazing to see, and we thank you for that.
Oh, looks like we lost Rick.
Well, maybe I spoke about our technical difficulties too soon, but
you know what? Last night I was on a Twitter panel with maybe like 27 other people who were in the room, and it's not only Restream, it's not only LinkedIn. There seems to be something in the air that's causing technical difficulties, because I think every single person who was in that room got booted out or couldn't do something at some point. So we're in good company.
Well, we have Rick back. Hi, Rick.
Welcome back, Rick. So why don't we do this? Why don't we go ahead and play a little game with our audience? Let's throw up the first stat and I will explain the rules. We're going to share with you a stat here. And what I'd like to do is for everybody who's in the audience who is reading this, I'll read it out loud too. guess in the chat if this is CANNAfact or CANNAfiction. This is super basic. Is it true? Is it false? Put your guess in the chat, CANNAfact or CANNAfiction. And the stat is the holiday that consumers told us they would be most likely to consume a cannabis beverage is Halloween. True or false? CANNAfact or CANNAfiction? Put your guess in the chat. And we'll read out some of the guesses and then we'll reveal the answer in a couple minutes. I should mention with this is related to a survey that we did. We asked people what their holiday they would be most likely to consume a cannabis beverage. And we gave them a list of options. They were all nationally recognized holidays. So it wasn't 420. It wasn't 710. It was all just your classic US holidays. This was a US nationwide survey with 356 responses. Let's see. We have some guesses coming in. Zeman guesses false. She says it is CANNAfiction. Jamie Whiter said true. She thinks it is CANNAfact. Erin Zeiglis thinks it's CANNAfiction also. All right, I'm seeing a lot of CANNAfiction guesses here. Tim Wilson says this is CANNAfact. It's true.
Right on. Well, and let's just check in with our guest as we try to work through this, and we'll get back to this question. Rick, are you with us? Are you able to hear us?
CANNAfiction guesses Jenny.
And I see Rick. Okay. Try that again, Rick. Are you with us? Can you hear us? I see your mouth moving, but I don't hear. I don't hear.
It's going to be okay. We're going to get through this and we're going to just keep on rolling, right? Rolling with the punches. All right, let's see. Anyone else want to guess if this is CANNAfact or CANNAfiction? All right, let's reveal the answer. It is CANNAfiction. Turns out the top holiday that people say they are most likely to consume an infused beverage is New Year's Eve. That was the top choice. What do you think about that, David? Does that surprise you at all that New Year's Eve is the one people are wanting to crack open a cannabis beverage?
No, that makes sense to me. I think everybody's looking to celebrate and bring in the new year, perhaps in a different way. And these are already cannabis consumers, so they're already canna friendly. So New Year's definitely makes sense to me. I'm also curious too, you know, not only of the holiday, but also of the beverage that sort of relates to the holiday. So, you know, champagne always relates to New Year's Eve, or maybe, I don't know, a cold beer relates to Independence Day or 4th of July, you know, which came in pretty high at 50%. I think it was, 62% was New Year's and 50% was the 4th of July. And then 48% was Christmas. So, you know, it's just interesting to sort of see how those holidays include the, you know, the ritual of drinking beverages. So no, not really a surprise to me.
Yeah, I wonder if people in the champagne industry would be nervous to see this. Like, is cannabis beverage going to overtake champagne as the top New Year's Eve drink? Let's see. And yeah, Christmas is high. And then interestingly, the last one at the very bottom is my birthday, right? So people are, that is the one where people are like, okay, I'm going to treat myself. It's my birthday. I'm going to try a cannabis beverage today.
Right. That's certainly a national holiday, my birthday. Yeah, it's interesting to see that. It's also interesting, you know, in some ways, how they connect and how people let their hair down, so to speak, on different holidays, and how we associate different things with different holidays too. You know, I'm sorry to see Rick isn't here because we had all these questions about how the retail holiday was tied to beverages and to beverage flavor profiles. You know, probably Starbucks wouldn't be what it is without its pumpkin latte in the fall time, right? So, so it's just interesting to see how that sort of translates. And what I was hoping to ask Rick was, how does that, or does it translate, right, into the cannabis industry? You know what? I'm curious to ask the folks, since we don't have Rick. Why don't we ask our listeners? Do you think flavor profiles are tied to cannabis beverages, and would that potentially change your your selection? It's almost like eggnog or pumpkin latte,
Right.
in the fall and Christmas time. I'm curious. Does anybody have any thoughts around that? Hi, Rick. Welcome back.
Hi, Rick.
Poor Rick. This is a sitcom video.
Right. This is going to be on our bloopers reel for sure.
That's right.
What I have sort of seen is that with flavors in general, but particularly in the holidays, we sort of see trends, right? So they'll be like, okay, this year everybody's doing a sage stuffing. And the same thing I think applies to this situation, right? When you start to associate things, flavors with certain rituals and certain habits, right? It becomes like, oh, I can't live my life without my Christmas eggnog that's infused with cannabis. That's just an example. I don't know about any infused eggnog. If there is, hit me up and let me know. I'd be curious to learn about that.
Well, there's certainly enough fat in it to make it work even better. But it's interesting. I know, back in the day, Jones Soda came out with their Thanksgiving turkey gravy flavored soda. And they did that, I guess as a spoof, relative to a seasonal flavor. I guess there's not too much profitability in seasonal flavors, though. I'm guessing, just because they're only there a certain part of the year. Hi, Rick. Welcome back. I see you talking, but I don't. There's no sound. Do you want to check your mute unmute button, or perhaps the sound if you're on your phone?
Would it be Christmas? Would it be your New Year's Eve? Do you agree that New Year's Eve is the best time to have a cannabis beverage? I want to hear from people in the chat.
And Adriana, I think you were muted for a good portion of that. We're really having a technical difficulty kind of day.
Yeah, audience, I want to hear from you. Do you agree with the people who took this poll? Would New Year's Eve be your preferred time to have a beverage? Let's hear from you. New Year's Eve, is that your top one? Is it birthday? Is it Independence Day or 4th of July? What do you think? Let us know. Yes. Vanessa says yes to all of the above.
All of the above.
I agree. Yes to New Year's. Yep.
Hello, Joshua Littlejohn from High Grade Syrups in Colorado. Welcome.
Welcome. Welcome. I love New Year's Eve. Just for the record. It's my favorite holiday.
Really noted. Really?
Yeah. Because it's about renewal and it's about having fun and it's about, it's not a religious holiday. You don't have to buy gifts. You don't have to, do anything that's not just about having fun. So that's why I love New Year's Eve. Aaron says Thanksgiving would be his top choice. Also a good one. Thanksgiving actually was somebody who guessed on LinkedIn. I also did a LinkedIn poll and with this same exact question to see if there was a difference between what consumers were saying and what people in the industry were saying or people in my network. And Independence Day was the top choice actually. So interesting, right? But I see Thanksgiving too, right? Because that's all about eating. And if you want to get a little appetite going, that could work for you.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. It's interesting. I'll take a risk at saying this just because so many people love New Year's here, but New Year's is probably my least favorite holiday because it's this countdown to like a
I'm
count.
shocked to hear that, David.
I know, considering the party animal that I am. But anyway, yeah. So it's this countdown to midnight, and then that's kind of it. Everybody drags themselves home. So I don't know. I like Thanksgiving. I like the concept of being thankful, being grateful, and sharing those thoughts with the people that we love. So there's something to be said about that.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally true. Absolutely. And for people who have challenging families, why not bring a little bit of additional support in during those times, right?
Sarah Falvo from ArcView, by the way, said New Year's Eve as well. And while I don't see the user, they did say, oh, that's right. It was Sarah who said hair on point. And
Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate you.
Sarah, is my hair not on point today? Sorry, I had to. Well, we seem to have lost our guest. I hope
You know what? We're gonna bring Rick back on to a later episode. Let's do that. Does that work?
It does, although he may still be, he's probably frantically running around his factory trying to get connected to this call, and I feel bad for that.
This is what we'll do. Christina, will you give him a call and let him know that we'll reschedule? Thank you.
Okay.
All right, David, you ready to riff and just be off the cuff on this one?
Why not? Let's do it.
Yeah, let's get. All right, let's do the next game. Are you guys ready?
Yeah. Do I need to go get my tap dancing shoes right now, or are we tap?
David's gonna sing some opera for us at the end. You have to stay to the end for the grand finale.
Yes, the very end.
All right, let's do it. Let's go do the next CANNAfact or CANNAfiction. Ready for the stat. CANNAfact or CANNAfiction. And I will let you know as we're going through this, this is from the same poll that we surveyed people with the previous question. And we wanted to know, when you are choosing an infused beverage, what is the combination that you're looking for? Are you looking for only CBD? Are you looking for only THC? Are you looking for a combination of the two? And then there was also an option for unsure. If they didn't know which one they preferred, they could choose unsure. So
Right.
there were, this is what we're gonna do. Yes, if this is CANNAfact or CANNAfiction. 24% of the people that we surveyed said that they were unsure of what they wanted the composition of their infused beverage to be, what cannabinoids they wanted to be included in it. Curious to hear from our audience, is this CANNAfact or CANNAfiction? What do you think? Let me know. Drop your guess in the chat.
Right.
This was a nationwide survey of 356 people all across the country. Every state could be included. And this survey was from, I want to say, February 2022, very recent. All right, we have some guesses here. Don, yes, high CBD to THC. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, just to add to that, I want to just call out again and reiterate, these are 24% of cannabis consumers, right? So people who consume, people that we would assume understand the difference between THC and CBD, or a combination of the two, just to point that out.
Yes, thank you, David. That is helpful. Yes, they are cannabis consumers. And we asked them, when they're choosing an infused beverage, what combination do they want? 24% said unsure. Tom Brookshire, hi Tom, guessed CANNAfact. John Alarcon guessed CANNAfact. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of CANNAfacts. This one might be a CANNAfact. Not sure, don't want to give it away. CANNAfact combo, but higher THC percentage. Still want something mellow a little bit. Okay. Cool. Hey, Bart. Sorry, we lost Rick, but we're going to bring him back for another episode.
Stay with us, Bart, but we're having some technical difficulties.
We'll let you know when we reschedule Rick. Sorry to disappoint you, Bart.
What happened to Rick?
So David, what do you think is the answer to this one?
Oh boy. Well, um, I want to think people are more knowledgeable about this than they perhaps are, but I don't know. I really don't know if people fully understand the functions of THC, CBD, or a combination of the two. Uh,
Mhm.
I'm going to say CANNAfact. That's what I'm going to say. 24%.
All right, good guess. Does anyone else in the audience want to guess? I saw a lot of CANNAfacts coming in. I saw a couple of fictions coming in, but probably more CANNAfact than CANNAfiction. Anybody else care to take a guess before we reveal the answer?
And this is also beverages, specifically related to beverages.
Yeah, this is beverages.
Right.
All right, let's reveal. I think we need to bring on a drum roll. What do you think?
We're
Woo!
really tap dancing today.
Yes. Okay, this was CANNAfact. Good job, everybody who guessed CANNAfact. This is true. 24% do not know. They're unsure what their ideal combination is in infused beverages between THC and CBD. What you're looking at here on the screen is we thought, well, that's interesting that people seem to be unsure what they want in a beverage. What does that mean if you look at it against an edible? Are people more sure of what they want in edibles? And sure enough, it is a much smaller percentage who say they're unsure when it comes to edibles. I think there's a couple things happening here, and this is my sort of interpretation of it. It's something new, right? Beverages are something that haven't been around as long as edibles. Not as many people have tried it. I think that they are still kind of feeling it out, right? What's the right combination for me? How is it different from the other form factors I've tried in the past? What is the onset time? What do I drink it alongside? Am I consuming other cannabis when I'm drinking it? Am I consuming food? So there's some experimentation happening, I think, with this, and that sort of contributes to the unsure segment. What do you think, David?
I agree. I think when you have a new form factor, that new form factor, then gets into dosing, right? The form factor is all about uptake. Once we talk about uptake, then the dosing changes depending on if it's inhaled or ingested or a topical. And I think this is just sort of, again, pushing out a little bit further. People are more accustomed to edibles. People know a little bit more about edibles. People might even understand why they're eating an edible versus smoking, let's say. And that might only be because of their ritual, right? It might be because it's more discreet. They can eat a brownie in the kitchen really quickly instead of smoking and smelling the house up, right? So there's just different things, that take place. I see.
Yeah.
I see Joshua just wrote, "What's the difference between beverage and edible when both are ingested?" That's that's interesting.
A lot of it, I think, to address your question, Joshua, depends on the technology that you're talking about. And what we should probably do, David, is bring on Austin from Vertosa to talk about what contributes to those onset times and what the options are basically, and how beverages and edibles differ. So we will potentially cover that in a future show. I think that would be an interesting topic. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And we know the experts in the field to bring on and talk about the nanotechnology and the uptake and all of that
Mhm.
stuff. But I think
Yeah, we're gonna see Austin's beach ball analogy. He has a beach ball and a chain link fence, so stay tuned. Maybe we can get him on here to explain it.
that's right. That's right. And but I think what this shows, this particular slide we're looking at is the fact that cannabis infused beverages are new, that people don't really fully understand the dosing, the sessioning, if you will. And again, I've said this a number of different times. If you look at the movement in Washington State with cannabis beverages, it's really moved to higher doses really quickly, which is 100 megs per bottle, which
Mhm.
translates to 10 servings. But most people, most consumers have done the math and they said, hey, if I'm going to buy a bottle with 10 megs in it, which is one serving, or I'm going to buy a bottle with 100 megs in it, the THC is cheaper if I buy it, the 100 meg bottle. So I think, and then even further, the retailers, weren't about putting bottles up on their shelves with 10 megs, 20 megs, 30 megs. It's the same flavor profile, but it's just the varying dosing. That doesn't work either in this industry.
Mhm.
So in Washington State, we've seen a big push toward the higher dose and then even further, a smaller bottle. So what's happening now is this trend toward 5-hour energy shots, if you will, or sleep shots,
Mhm.
to that. Whereas in California, it seems very different. California is about the 5 meg THC 4 or 6 pack, like a can has, maybe like Gem and Jane, maybe like Wonder, Uncle Arnie's, Tinley's, right?
Yeah.
They're all lower dose. They're all sessioning. Um,
Well, the top selling beverage in California is Uncle Arnie's, which is the lemonade, and it's 100 milligrams.
Mhm.
But we also see a lot, to your point, David, on the other end of the spectrum. And I think it's sort of like, I would bet money that if you looked at the two audiences, the people who are choosing the high dose, the people that are choosing the low dose, how do they differ? That the low dose consumers are new to either the category itself, so new to cannabis, or maybe returning after being away from cannabis, or they are new to the form. They haven't had a beverage before and they want to affect them with a lower dose. Or to your point also, it's the value play, right? They're just going to get the large quantity that's potent and maybe dose it out. But I think there's also the other thing happening too, right? It's like these are the people who are uh they want something strong. Nothing wrong with it. No judgment.
That's right. That's right. And Ted points out Major does a great job with their beverages. They do. And
Mhm.
Major is originally from Seattle, Washington, and leveraging source technology, and they do. And again, that's also a high-powered, high THC drink, which is another example of what's kind of taking place here in Washington. I still think that, to your point, Adriana, I do think there's the Canna core that's really about getting high. And then there's the kind of friendly folks that are still, putting their foot in the pool. So I think these 5 meg drinks with a mix of CBD allows for people exactly what you just said, to start slow, to kind of get the right feel and
Mhm.
better understand how they'll be affected. And then, with a 4-pack or 6-pack, they can session with their friends. And even in that, showing up with a 6-pack is just that, is social, right?
Right.
You're there to be with your friends and to share. So
Mhm.
that's important.
Yeah, thank you for the comment, Ted. And there is so much technology to your comment, Ted. Nano infused. I have conversations with people, actually somebody that I met on CANNAfact Friday who was telling me about a technology that he's developing, and it's moving toward that fast onset, right? What I really like about beverages for me personally is that you don't have to drink the whole thing at one time. You can have a little sip, hang out for 10 minutes, see how you feel, have another little sip, hang out for 10 minutes. Whereas I think you wouldn't necessarily nibble on a gummy, for example. So I like that aspect of beverages. It can be a slow onset if you want it to be, or fast if you're drinking the whole thing.
And that's where I come back to form factors, right? Um, when you think about it, let's just say an edible. Let's take a brownie. Typically, you're going to eat that whole brownie, right? So if that brownie is microdosed, that's one thing. But if that brownie is a Corova medical brownie with 1,000 megs in it, um, even those with really high tolerances, they're going to spend the weekend sleeping. So the fact that chocolate or brownies, should be tranched or should be called out with serving sizes, that makes sense to me. But also, for example, you don't really sip a 5-hour energy shot, nor do you sip 100 megs in a soda bottle with a crown cap on it, because once you pop the crown cap, you can't really reseal it, and then you're losing the carbonation. So some of these, in the form factor itself, innate to the form factor, they're pushing you to kind of consume faster, right? So the fact that some of these other beverages are coming out with the 4 and 6 packs, those are also, they're doing the opposite. They're saying, hey, here's one serving, be mindful as you take those servings. So I definitely think form factors push the activity, but in both extremes, both to the Canna Curious and also the core Canna.
We have a comment here from Justin Johnson who says, House of Saka is definitely leaning into communal sharing of the beverage or just pouring a glass and saving it for later. Thank you for that comment. And yeah, I've seen those beautiful glass bottles of wine. And yes, good point. Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely. And I'd like to say hello to Justin. Justin also he's the owner of BuzzFeed, and he's also the owner of Chill Steel Pipes. And he's just killing it in the industry. He's at all the events and he's online all the time. And I don't know how he has the energy to do what he does, but a big shout out and a big hug to Justin.
I often wonder that about you too, David. How do you have the energy, for real?
Cannabis.
Do you mind if we take a quick poll, off the cuff poll? I'm curious to know from people in the audience, drop it in the chat. What is your preferred dose for a cannabis beverage, single serving? How many milligrams of THC? Do you like 2 milligrams, 5 milligrams, 10 milligrams? What is your dose? Let me know. I'm curious to hear. And then maybe next time we can compare against what consumers are saying, because we do have answers to those questions. Also, I want to show off my new artwork. What do you think? We're in outer space today.
We are. I like it. And I noticed.
Yeah, I used to have a painting of a person in a swimming pool, and now it's an astronaut going out and doing weird stuff. All right, Jamie Quider said 2 milligrams is her preferred dose. Curious what else people like. 2, 5, 10, 20, 100. Let us know what your preferred dose of THC is.
In a beverage form.
And
I'm also curious, just to ask even further, how many of you that are listening have consumed beverages? Because, and this is really one of the first things we started off with was, I believe we had Angela Pye on to talk about beverages.
Yeah.
Where beverages are only one, depending on who you talk to or what data you're reading, 1 to 3% of the industry. So 1 to 3% of the industry is very small, yet it's the fastest growing category in the industry. So, if you just take one of those sound bites, hey, cannabis beverages are the fastest growing segment in the cannabis industry, your mind starts racing on many things. But then if you realize it's the smallest segment, then it puts it in perspective. And that's what we try to do. But, what I'm seeing here, there's at least a few folks that haven't tried a beverage, and so that also says a lot that, even the folks that consume cannabis aren't quite there yet, or obviously 1 to 3% are, right? So, so it's interesting to see that. It's interesting to also understand, I think there's a jump. Let's say if somebody smokes a joint, or if somebody takes a puff off a pipe or a bong, that's kind of their dosing, right? That's what a lot of people have been used to. And then all of a sudden now there's this science added to it. There's how many milligrams do I dose, and when, and how often? And then is that a macro dose or a micro dose? I don't think people are totally up to speed on that quite yet.
We're getting some awesome comments in the chat, and I just want to share this from Chris Weber, who commented first, 5 milligrams seems to be right for me as a light consumer, and then said probably a drink a night. It's starting to replace my glass of Cabernet or Malbec.
Wow.
Thank you for that comment. I think that that's really helpful context too, is if you're replacing something, right, that is alcohol, you're probably looking to achieve the same level of relaxation that you would be with your Cabernet or your Malbec. And then I also want to share another story from a LinkedIn user. Sorry, some names I can see, some names I cannot. So I apologize for that if I'm not reading out your name. Once at Lao Cafe in LA, it was amazing. 50 milligrams for sure. Drunk the bottle and forgot where I was at and had food in front of me. It was delicious. That is so funny. That was from Tim Wilson. Thank you.
That's pretty funny. I didn't make it to the Lowell Cafe. I wish I did.
Interestingly, I had reservations to go there on Halloween, but ended up canceling because there was the parade and it was like too hectic trying to get into Hollywood that day. But yeah, that's my story. Not very exciting. Let's read a couple more comments here. Don said, Ray's lemonade makes some amazing tasting 100 milligram, but I got to ration it to stay in my tolerance level. Yep, I can relate to that.
And Ray's, Ray's was originally from Washington State too. I know they're in other states now. Great people and great product.
50-50 mix of CBD, THC, 5 milligram, 5 milligram. Yep. Thank you, Don.
I like the comment. I have to go back to Chris's comment about, replacing Cabernet or Malbec. I think it's really intriguing. I certainly think the alcohol industry, if there's any folks listening in right now, I'm sure they're paying attention to comments like that, which is important. That they not only go hand in hand together, but they're also a replacement. Let's talk for let's talk for a moment. Just I know we spoke about this before. Many of the beverages that came into the space, Can in particular, is probably the one that's most noticed for doing this, was really their anti-alcohol campaign, which was Hangovers Canceled, CANN canceled, and some others. And then a little bit later, they came back with some other holiday videos where they incorporated vodka into a drink with Can. I think they realized quickly that many of the cannabis consumers are also alcohol consumers and that they didn't want to alienate anybody. So they were trying to bridge the gap maybe that they've created between cannabis and alcohol consumers. But it's interesting. And I think that sort of goes back to, Chris's comment about the replacement. And I think the alcohol industry has to be taking note of that. If they're not, they're missing a big change in evolution in the industry of beverage consumption, evolution of beverage consumption.
Especially going back to our first stat about New Year's Eve. That's a drinking holiday traditionally. And people are saying, hey, we want cannabis instead. Curious if anyone wants to drop in the chat, are you consuming alcohol and cannabis at the same time? Is that, I know it's a little bit of a taboo, the cross-faded thing, but guess what? It's CANNAfact Friday. We can talk about whatever we want. Nothing is taboo.
It's cross-faded Friday, isn't it?
Yeah, go ahead and let us know. No judgment. This is a judgment-free zone.
We'll save our judgments till after the show. Ted wrote, I find it interesting how beverages are limited to 100 megs of THC, but then these tincture syrup brands are able to put 1,000 megs per bottle. Yes, and it's true. And, in many states, there are different rules and regulations for tinctures versus beverages, even though they're both liquid, they're very similar. I think that comes from the adult use versus the medical use perspective. But as that's also starting to change over time, we'll have to work both ends against the middle. I see Joshua Littlejohn chimed in and said, yes, Joshua creates syrups and those syrups are very high dose. And what's interesting is, for the medical patients, those syrups have been traditionally high dosed, or for the urban community and those folks that were interested in purple drank and lean and so on and so forth. But now he's moving toward maple syrup and vanilla syrup and some of the other syrups that, you know, are used in different communities for different purposes. And the dosing profiles are coming down. So it's interesting to see how companies and brand owners not only see how the beverage is being used, but where it's being used and when it's being used, and then formulating the dosing around that. So it's doing
Good point. Good point, David. So before we wrap up, I know we're getting close to the end. I want to read one more comment from Chris. I know several that are turning to can infused because they're older and tired of hangovers. I think we can all relate to that. Feeling bloated and the other alcohol side effects. Thank you for your comment, Chris. David, do you want to share who our guest is for next week? Oh, and before that, I just want to say, sorry to anyone who came in here to talk to Rick. We will definitely reschedule him and have him back. We were super excited to talk to him. Technical difficulties happen sometimes, but we will bring him back for sure.
Absolutely. And Rick, again, is super knowledgeable. You know, he schooled us, and I know he'll school everybody that's listening. So we'll bring him back for sure. We are excited about our guest for next week. He's a Harvard-trained architect living in Boston, and he has been developing many dispensaries around the country. So we're going to talk to him about dispensary design and some of the trends that are taking place, how he uses his space and the flow of space to educate people on cannabis products and cannabis consumption. And we're pretty excited to chat with him next week. And his name is Brian Anderson, and his company is Anderson Porter Architects.
Cool. Yeah, I'm really excited for that conversation. We've talked a lot about products and form factors on the show, but we have yet to really dive into the shopping experience, which is a huge facet. So definitely excited for that one.
Yeah, there's so much, you know, whether it's the merchandising, whether it's the educational component, and it's really the experience, right? You know, how do you make walking into a cannabis shop, an adult use store, an experience, and a memorable one, and a positively memorable one, because you could also have negatively memorable experiences too. But getting your head around that, who are the cannabis consumers? How do they like to be served? What products do they buy, and why? And always coming back to, you know, we always come back to the consumer, don't we? You know, what is
Yeah,
it?
of course.
And what is it they're seeking? So
Yeah.
we're excited. I know the next slide up coming up is really going to be about CANNAfact Friday. And if anybody wants, take a look at the URL, sign up for our CANNAfact Friday newsletter, where you can get a weekly CANNAfact right to your inbox every week. Again, next week, Brian Anderson, architect, dispensary retail design. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're sorry we had technical difficulties with Rick. We'll bring him back because there's lots to talk about the cannabis beverage form factor and how that will normalize cannabis to the canna curious. So again, we've made it right to another Friday. And
we made it. And we will see you again next Friday. Thanks everybody for joining us.
That's right. Thank you, and have a great weekend and great week. We'll see you next Friday. Bye-bye.
Bye.